So do stay tuned. If you have your song requests, you know what to do. 0700917917 or 0732917917. Also go to our social media handles at SwahiliPotFM.co.ke on X, Facebook, and Instagram. Now, I have a guest in studio that we have been waiting for. Emmanuel Gon and I have been waiting for, and I know you have also been waiting for the guest. My guest is Maimuna Mwidau. She is a political analyst, and we have had her on the show before, but just on call. Today we have her in studio. What you need to do is stream on www.SwahiliPotFM.co.ke. You get to see her as you listen to her. Maimuna, good morning.
Morning.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for the invite. I appreciate.
Yeah, we do appreciate you joining us here today. I want us to start the conversation on why Kenya does not have a consistent political party. But let's just listen to one of our listeners who sent a voice note.
Okay.
Yes. So I'll need you to put on the headphones to be able to listen in.
Good morning, SwahiliPot FM. This is Joyce listening from Buxton, and I feel like the reason why, as a country, we don't have consistent political system is because our political leaders, most of them, they want their needs or like what they feel like is right for the country to be heard, and then so if you are limited to only 2 political parties, therefore you'll have to go with the manifesto of these 2 political parties. Remember that multi-party, Kenya becoming a multi-party state is something people fought for, others died. Yeah, so I think that we as a country should celebrate the fact that we are allowed to have several political parties, one. And then another thing about having limiting people to only 2 political parties is that after people have been chosen, like this is going to be the president, this is going to be the president. So we have to put ourselves in a position where we like only these 2 people. It doesn't give us the chance to maybe weigh which other person is better. Yeah. And we have seen, like, personally, I feel like the United States, if we had another candidate apart from Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, we could have seen maybe why we should go for this other candidate apart from these 2, because maybe these 2 people they don't sit well with other people, so you are forced to only choose between the 2 of them. These are my thoughts. Yeah, thank you.
That is Joyce from Buxton. Let's begin with that.
Well, it's interesting the way she says it, and I'm glad that she was able to articulate herself clearly. However, one thing that I need to clarify is that it's not about just 2 parties in the United States. The Democrats and the Republicans are the biggest parties, but there are other smaller parties in the United States. It's just that these 2 parties have developed over a period of time, and the membership of each of these parties has been there for generations. That is why they are as big as they are. And the same thing could apply to any African country, because they are so developed to the point that it's not about an individual in a party. It's about believing in the manifesto of that party.
Yeah.
It's about issues. It's not about Kamala Harris, neither is it about Obama, or is it about Trump.
Yeah.
It's about being a Republican, what it means to be a Republican. You believe in certain things, and what it means to be a Democrat, you believe in certain things. If you listen to the leadership of those parties at different times, they have the same message, what the Democrats stand for and what the Republicans stand for. So that's the differentiation. So Americans do have a choice of other small parties, but the majority of them belong to these 2 major parties.
Okay.
Same as the Conservatives in the UK, same as the Labour in the UK. If you're a Labour Party member, you believe in those principles of the Labour.
Okay.
Yeah, and you stand for something. So it's a little bit different from where we are. Maybe we are heading there in 200 years, maybe things will change. But in the meantime, we are still growing and finding our space as a country to develop that kind of space.
Okay, so let's come home. We see a crop of parties every single election year, I believe. Yeah, I know there are people forming parties right now.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Every election cycle.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are parties, there are new parties. We cannot, you forget. Why don't we have consistent political parties in Kenya?
I think we have a history in this country. Right now, we have about 100 registered political parties. And that information is easily available from the ORPP, Office of the Registrar of Political Parties. All fully registered parties are listed there.
Yeah.
And this came about as a result of 1992 when Section 2A was deleted. Remember that time Raila Odinga and the rest liberation movement guys were pushing for a multi-party system. And that is when we started the journey into multi-party politics, because we were a one-state
Yes.
party. I grew up in a one-state party, and KANU was the party.
Yeah.
The mama and the baba, that was
Yes.
the party of the day.
Yeah.
So once you grow up, you reach 18, you are registered into KANU. There was a KANU youth wing, but it was a very strict system
Yeah.
where you didn't have so much liberties. Either you belong there or you don't belong
you don't
at all.
belong there, yeah.
Exactly. And competition was between KANU members within
Yes.
KANU. So there was a KANU A and a KANU B, and you had to be somewhere in between, but it was fully controlled. But that was a result of coming from colonialism,
Yeah.
where now we needed to establish ourselves. But there was a little bit of a history between 1963 and to the time that we had that section inserted, because we already had parties during independence. There was a Coast People's Party, there was KADU, there was KANU. There was those small parties because we were under the Majimbo system and we wanted to borrow from the British system.
Yeah.
So that short period of time is when KANU was now back into the fold, took everybody on board, and we became one united state where we wanted to be together.
Yeah.
Then we found that we cannot be together because things are not working. There's no freedom of speech, freedom of expression.
Yes.
You just had to listen to one person, and this time was Jomo Kenyatta the senior.
Yeah.
So that was a different period. We were just getting out of the colonial period, being very proud. We have our own president, we have our own parliament, we have everything of our own, except the fact that we did not learn to be free.
Yeah.
So that is the little bit of a history.
Yeah.
We could get into that. But then after 1990, that is when now we started having that freedom to form parties.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is how we grew from one party into this multitude of parties.
Yeah.
Then there were new laws, of course, put in place after 2010 constitution.
What effect did that have? So in 1990s, we see a rise in political parties. What did that effect have in the political world, in the political space?
The scenario changed.
Yeah.
We had now many leaders coming up. The Wamalwas, the Jaramogi Odinga, and then Raila himself emerged. Many leaders emerged who had different thinking. Some were liberal Democrats, some were socialist Democrats, some were just independents. People with different kind of ideologies came out very clearly. And when I say ideologies, I mean everybody thought we can form a government and run it this way.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
Somebody else came up and said, no, that is not the best way out. I think if we went this direction, we would be better off as a country. So there was a difference in thinking. And it was not necessarily a rivalry, negative rivalry. It was competition. It was good competition and generating thinking and interest and dynamics that would make our country move from one party state into a multi-party state where you have the freedoms to express yourself.
Yes.
And new leadership would emerge out of that.
With that in mind, so we move from the one-party state to multi-partyism, and we're given room to express ourselves, to choose our leaders. But then we're also seeing, which is what we're experiencing right now, we are seeing a case of a lot of political parties that do not really have a lifeline. What's going on? What are they missing?
What was missing was, one, funding for political parties. Now, that is very important. That is why you see the big man syndrome. If you read political science, you will understand that the politics of patronage.
Yeah.
certain leaders that came in from the old system into the new system of multi-party were able to find resources and put up a political party, but then it became an identity of the individual, not a free institution like what you have in the developed world.
Yes.
So as a result, when you have a rift within that political party, you find somebody else within that political party will shift and form their own party and have their own following. And then you have to understand our politics is basically tribally based.
Yeah.
So every time there's a conflict between two leaders, they go back home and say, our people.
Yeah.
You know, our person has been mistreated.
Yes.
Then they form their own bus, they form their own boat,
Yeah.
and they form a political party.
Yeah.
And they get a following.
Yes.
Now, as a result of that, we find that most political parties are regionally based in the sense that if your leader is a particular person, you follow him just because he's one of you.
How can we break that cycle?
We'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Okay.
And that is why the Gen Z came on board. And the last time I spoke, I said, this was a breath of fresh air. Because it's a totally different generation that doesn't understand these other dynamics.
Yeah.
They have lived together. They have schooled together. They see themselves as one. They don't see themselves as a region, as a tribe, as a religion, but they see themselves as a generation. Kiswahili Rika.
Yes.
You know, if you're of the same generation, you have mingled so much from school, from social activities. For instance, the rest of you guys here doing this kind of work and content creation and everything, you come from all over, but you have something in common.
Yeah, we do.
But that old generation was a little bit different from colonialism. Then, you know, you come from a home region. By the time you get to meet the other people is because you went to university.
Yeah.
If you didn't go to university, you probably won't meet the other person.
Yeah.
So there is a generation change, and that is the transition of leadership as far as I'm concerned. Because if you hear of Tomboya, they were just about 29, 30 years old when they took up leadership at that time.
Yeah.
Because that was the generation growing up after colonialism. Now we have a generation that has come in with the internet. I grew up in the time when we didn't have mobile phones. So, you know, you had to wait for the phone to call at that particular space.
Yeah.
So there's a transition that is going to overtake the basic tribal foundation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's based on issue. It's not about my region, my people, my relative. It's about, when I heard the Gen Zs talking about we want a good economy, you know, we want opportunities. You're talking about basic things
It's
of
the
survival.
issues. Yes.
Yeah, these are the basic things of survival. You go to any developed country, they don't ask you who's the prime minister, who's the president. They just want to know what kind of opportunities are available.
Yeah.
So I can make my life.
Yeah.
So that transition is happening now in Kenya. And it's a huge threat because change is not easy. And when change comes, there will be some resistance from some quarters because they're used to the status quo. So this transition is positive, only that it has to be guided, and it's guided by the law.
Okay.
A quick one, maybe I'm just looking at 202. Ule mwaka ulikuwa ni kama haikuwa tena cha region kwamba iko hivi because 1992 tumeingia kwa multipartyism. But 97 ni kama haiku work because bado tulirudi ndani ya KANU. Then sasa 202 ikawa sasa ni ile mkusanyiko wa viongozi wale mbalimbali. Ni kama sasa pale ndio ilianza tena vizuri tu. Lakini sijui kukaendaje ama kulingana na wewe unaionaje ile 2002. Is it ilikuwa ni a region ama pia ilikuwa ni kind of revolution tu kama hii ya Gen Z ambayo kidogo tunaiona?
Ni revolution kwa sababu at 202 opposition ikajikuta lazima wakusanye.
Yeah.
Kuna agenda ambayo lazima walikuwa waishinde wakati ule. Na kukiwa na issue kama hiyo, hamujali mumetoka wapi. Kwanza mtakusanyana mupate ile agenda muimalize. Mkishamaliza ile agenda, mkikaa chini sasa ndio mwajiuliza sasa wewe ulitoka wapi. That's when now things go back to where you started, but at least agenda ya kwanza umeimaliza kwanza. And katika siasa hiyo ni kawaida. kama unakuta mfano mzuri nitakupa wa Israel wakati walikuwa wataka kumtoa Netanyahu at that time. So kawaida wana differences wao among the Israelis na Waarabu. Lakini ilipokuwa agenda kwamba kwanza tumtoe Netanyahu then tutasolve mambo mengine hapo. Hata ile Arab Party ambayo ni ndogo ikamaji na wenzake, the conservative Jews wote wakamaji just to make sure wamemtoa Netanyahu kwanza. Then wakagawanyana mamlaka kwamba tukifaulu hapa nyinyi mtapata hivi and it worked. Kwa sababu sheria yao pia iliwaruhusu kuweza kufanya coalition. Wajua kuna kuvunja serikali na kuweza kufanya coalition bila kwenda kwenye election. Sisi hatuna bado mpango huo. Ya hiyo ni mipango ya serikali zingine. Unaweza kuvunja serikali, rais kwa sababu hayuko elected na chama, anakuwa ni executive. Kwa hiyo anasema yule ambaye ana majority ataunda serikali. Kwa hiyo Netanyahu akitolewa, ikiwa huko opposition wameform majority, wanaambiwa sasa undeni serikali ya coalition. So huo ni mfumo mwingine.
So tuwatoende tulikuwa na, was it NASA ama which
na Kibaki.
Yes.
Yeah. That time ilikuwa KANU must go.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay.
That was the biggest problem wakati huo. KANU lazima iende. Yote yawezekana. You know, after that rally Uhuru Park. So that was the rallying call kwamba kwanza tutoi KANU out. This is the biggest problem we have. Because KANU was rigid. It was not changing, it was not developing, it was still rigid. Na ilikuwa na mfumo wa inheritance kwamba sasa akitoka huyu tutamweka huyu, not what people think, what we think. So ile kawa rejected. So once that is rejected, this new formation tayari ilikuwa na a multitude ya leaders. But again, unajua mkiwa viongozi pamoja kuna ule ushindani pia. Tushapata kila mtu wants to be in the front.
Exactly.
And then that is when kama haikuwa fulfill ile promise ulipatiwa before, ndio sasa na wewe una riot, unaenda unatoka na watu wako sasa. Kwa sababu kila mtu anakuja na watu wake. There's a stake. Ukiambiwa kuna shares, it's true, kuna shares.
Tumesikia.
Kila mtu ajana kikosi chake.
Tuliambiwa kuna shares.
Kama mkifanya coalition, you look at what you bring on the table. Swali la kwanza, what do you bring on the table? Your importance, the role you will play depends on the numbers utakazoleta. Usiseme una namba za watu wawili watatu ambao it will not make us win, alafu wataka kuwa vice president.
Huwezi.
Haiwezekani.
We are here with Maimuna Mwidau. My goodness, we are understanding the political party scene. In a bit, we'll talk about how to form political parties, what you need to do. Because I know people are seated and they're like, hey, we are partyless. Unfortunately, you need to have a party for your voice to be heard in certain rooms. Okay? This is SwahiliPot FM Breakfast Club. My name is Miriam Angel. Where are you listening to us from? Do send us your comments, messages on 0700917917. We'll be back in a bit.
Pay attention. Mambo vipi SwahiliPot FM? Na enjoy the show na wasikiza kutoka Kuchangamwe. Ni Calvin Opio.
Hamjambo, kwa majina naitwa T na wasikiza kutoka mtaa wa Kisauni na napenda show yenu. Asanteni.
SwahiliPot 91.7 FM.
The best radio.
Mombasa.
Habari za hapa kwetu pwani, sana michezo na burudani. SwahiliPot FM. SwahiliPot FM. Hadithi utamaduni nyumbani, radio nambari moja ya pwani. SwahiliPot FM. SwahiliPot